Hello to all attendees. We're here, we're very pleased to have you here on this plenary session. You're watching Transforming Transportation 2021. Welcome to the Lee Schipper Scholarship Award ceremony. My name is Ramon Munoz-Raskin. I'm a senior transfer specialist with the World Bank. I'm co-facilitating this session together with my colleague and co-facilitator Jorge Dartman, who will take over at the end. We are supporting on behalf of the Lee Schipper Scholarship Board. What we do in this session is to present the work from selected young researchers, 35 years or younger, that have been awarded the prestigious Lee Schipper Scholarship for their ideas. And some of you may be wondering who Lee Schipper was. Lee was a prolific, intellectually provocative member of our global transport community. He was an energizing influence to several generations of us, transport and climate change planners. And very important, Lee was also the founder of Embark, which is now the WRI Ross Center for Sustainable Cities, and the originator of this Transforming Transportation Conference. When Lee left us, we felt a huge void as he was an important supporter of young generations. So that's why Holger and I founded the scholarship program and the Transforming Transportation tradition to take a little pause from the high-level panels that you've been watching and listen to what the new generations have to say. An opportunity for us all to listen to their voices of those who are going to become the next to shatter our assumptions. This year's award ceremony is a very special one because 2021 is the 10th anniversary of Lee's passing. Wherever he is now, we know that he must be celebrating with his jazz band Lee Schipper and the Mitigators. Lee must be very happy because of the increased global attention to climate change as critical for the future of our species. This being said, let's now proceed with our movers and shakers, the winners. They are going to present their research and ideas. Please use the technical session chat if you have any comment or question during the presentation, and the awardees will try to respond after. Feel also free to provide your contact and they can continue the discussion with you. Let me also thank WRI and the World Bank for their support to the scholarship and for providing this venue every year during Transforming Transportation. We also want to thank the Volvo Research Educational Foundation and the Self Foundation and all other donors who have generously contributed to the scholarship. So let's go. I'm going to now introduce our first awardee, Dr. Abisai Konstantinus, who happens to also be our first African scholar, thanks to the special track for African researchers sponsored by BRF. Abisai is a PhD graduate from University of Cape Town, South Africa, and the CEO of Ndatara Surveys. He comes from Namibia. His research will talk about sources shipping in the African continent, which is an untapped potential for African low-carbon logistics. Nice to have you here, Dr. Konstantinus, and over to you.
Thank you very much. I will now continue to share my screen and go through my slides. As a merchant shipping officer with 16 years experience, I've been a very keen advocate of the maritime industry. Now, I believe that the maritime industry holds many opportunities for the world, but more so for the African continent. Now, Africa faces a number of transport problems. In particular, it's also the least developed continent in the world, and it's also home to some of the most dangerous roads. And that is why we study short sea shipping. Now, short sea shipping is an alternative form of transport that uses or utilizes inland waterways and coastal waterways to transport goods and people. Short sea shipping has a number of advantages, like reduction of road congestion. It's very sustainable. It's also a way of expanding the freight transport network, and it can also be a catalyst for economic development. Now, we have studied short sea shipping in Southern Africa, looking at different indicators such as economy, geographical, policy. However, most of these were also from the shipper perspective. So we did like a lot of behavioral model looking at shipper behavior. However, one area that we neglected is the ship owner or the supply side. That is what makes it conducive for the ship owner to operate short sea shipping, and is the market really viable in Southern Africa? That is why with the Lee Schipper Scholarship, we decided to do a case study. Basically, this study now was a qualitative one in nature, which involved a one-on-one engagement with individual participants. Now, the literature that we reviewed recommends interviewing one respondent where that single respondent has all the information. However, for our study, we decided to conduct 2 semi-structured interviews with executives in our subject company. We're still busy with this. Now, our subject company is Ocean Africa Container Lines. Basically, Ocean Africa Container Line is a coastal carrier that operates in Southern Africa. These are some of the features. They operate a fortnight service throughout all the port cities in Southern Africa. But however, a bulk of their services is regional and feeder cargo for the major shipping lines like Maersk. Now, one of the issues that we investigated, why is short sea shipping or coastal shipping unreliable? And here, there's 2 things. There's a lack of dedicated infrastructure, and there's also a lack or low intermodality. So basically, there's very low integration between this mode of transport and the land-based modes. However, there's a very, very big opportunity right now in Africa, and that's presented by the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement that basically makes the whole African continent a massive one market, which is valued at around $3 trillion. And it's projected that it's going to increase, or it's going to result in an increase in intercontinental trade by 52%. Now, that's a lot of volume that can be carried by ships. Another opportunity as well is in maritime cabotage. Now, if you look at this graph, you will see that the majority of the world basically has cabotage rules which restrict the carriage of goods within this region by locally owned ships. If you look at the African map, you will see that there's a lot of white countries which can also adopt these policies. Now, cabotage presents also a number of advantages. It creates employment, and it also creates an easier way to police the oceans and to reduce piracy. So this is another opportunity. However, there's, of course, the big elephant in the room, which is COVID-19. The impacts of this were felt. The biggest thing initially, there were a reduction in the volumes of freight handled. Labor issues was the big one because ships could not do crew changes, so they had a lot of labor issues. However, the impacts of COVID actually on coastal shipping was not as bad as initially anticipated. Now, that's one of the last findings for this presentation. Just to sum it up, there are basically a lot of opportunities, but it requires outright support from government. Dedicated port infrastructure is a need. And the Africa Free Trade Area presents a huge opportunity, but there are challenges to overcome. Cabotage policies also present huge opportunity. COVID did not present as a major challenge. And just in closing, these are some of our contact details, and we also like to say thank you to the Lee Schipper Scholarship and the Volvo Research Education Fund for allowing us to do these studies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abisai. That was great. And now let's welcome our second awardee, Fariba Siddiq. Fariba is a PhD candidate from University of California, Los Angeles in the United States, and she specializes in transportation policy and planning. She comes from Bangladesh, and her research is on gender and mobility, and a topic which is a topic of increasing relevance in the global agenda. She has a special focus on ride-hailing in her research. So nice to have you here, Fariba, and over to you. Fariba, I think you're on mute.
Good morning, everyone. It's early morning in California, but I'm really excited to be here to present on my research on gender differences in travel and ride-hailing's emerging role. I would like to start thanking my sponsor, Lee Schipper Memorial Scholarship, and my partners, UCLA Institute of Transportation Studies and Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology. So to start, what causes differences in travel between men and women? This is a study from my home country, Bangladesh, where 20% women stopped using public transit because of sexual harassment. So sexual harassment and perceptions of safety are the leading causes for differences in travel between men and women. Among the other causes, there is societal norms regarding gender-appropriate travel behavior and lower level of access to information technology. So with the advancement of information technology, ride-hail services emerged in the 2000s, and there have been claims that these services provide safer travel for women, but there is no empirical evidence. So in my research, I asked the question, how are these services affecting safe and independent movement of women? And for this, I conducted surveys in Dhaka, Bangladesh, and Los Angeles, California in the United States. But I present my findings from the Dhaka part of the study here based on the findings from the surveys. So looking at the primary means of transportation before COVID-19, I found that a substantial portion of the respondents, both men and women, use ride-hail services as their primary means of transportation. I also asked about sexual harassment in public transit, and I found that both men and women face sexual harassment in transit, although the proportion of women facing harassment is almost twice than men facing so. And there also exist gender differences in ride-hail use. So women typically use the services booked by someone else or ride along with a family member or friend. This is likely because drivers of ride-hail services often harass women using the personal information provided in the app. Women use car ride-hail services more than motorcycle ride-hail services or even female-only services. Although the demand for motorcycle ride-hail services is increasing, and this shows that there is a latent demand for motorcycle ride-hail services and also female-only services. Looking at ride-hail use pattern by income, so who do not know about these services? It's the lowest income tier who do not know about the services or haven't heard about the services. And the services are most frequently used or as primary means of transportation by highest income tier. 18% of the women who know about the services do not use the services. So women from all income group mentioned safety issues as a major concern, not using the services. They are not comfortable traveling with strangers. And the women from higher income group mentioned that they have their own vehicle, so they don't need the services. And women from lowest income tier often do not have smartphone or do not have internet connection to use the services. And also the services are too expensive for them to afford. So to wrap up my presentation, for Dhaka, sexual harassment in public transit and safety issues are major concerns. So options need to be explored to address these issues. Campaign, reporting mechanism, and women-only services need to be explored to tap into potential users. And ride-hail services are yet to provide accessibility benefits to low-income population. So options need to be explored to support this group and also those who do not have access to internet and smartphone. Thank you very much. If you have any question, please contact me, and I would love the chance to collaborate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fariba. And now we can proceed with our third and last awardee of this session, Jungwoo Chun. Jungwoo is a PhD candidate from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in the United States. He specializes in political reform to advance public interest technology. He comes from South Korea. His research is unusual as it focuses on something that we as the scholarship have been looking forward to having among candidates, which is on how things happen more than what happens, and which is a type of research that is also very needed in our sector. So nice to have you here, Jungwoo, and over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your kind words and remarks, Ramon. Hello, distinguished guests and colleagues. First of all, I want to thank the Lee Schipper Scholarship for making this research possible. I'm going to speak a little bit about my ongoing research, institutions, policy changes, and personal vehicle electrification. So culture in social sciences is commonly referred as a set of values, beliefs, a way of life. I think of transportation much the same way, like the two images here. Mobility culture is a widely studied area, including the works of Joanna Moody, who is here with us, who received this scholarship and gave a talk here several years ago. So we're looking at recent work put out by Professors Acemoglu and Robinson. They show that politics, economic outcomes, and social relations shape culture as much as being shaped by cultural configurations. So they say cultures can be fluid and institutions affect culture, and also politics play a role here, which in turn affects institutions. So if we're thinking about personal transport electrification as one of the next mobility cultures, so to speak, my motivation is that there's a need to look at institutions. Are there good and bad institutions? If certain institutions are performing well and helping countries perform well, what's the difference about their cultures and institutions? Also, are there specific patterns of institutional changes or policy changes that seem to be consistent with the EV market share? So this is one of the illustrations of global plug-in markets. You can see the rapid growth on the far right, especially in many European countries led by Norway. Due to the pandemic, unfortunately, my timeline has been pushed back. Most of my fieldwork will be completed middle of this year. With a combination of literature review and document analysis, I'm hoping to conduct a portrait of policy change and institutional reform with the aim of trying to explain why and how a particular country moved more or less rapidly to expand EV market share. I plan to conduct in-depth semi-structured interviews with both government officials and non-governmental experts, including industry, NGOs, and academics in my 3 case study locations, Norway, Denmark, and Iceland. Norway is obviously the world's most rapidly growing EV market. Denmark and Iceland are interesting because they have very similar ambitions, but are operating under very different circumstances. So now just looking at my case study locations, Norway, Denmark, and Iceland, they represent a wide range of where they are in terms of market share. Denmark closely resembles the wider EU trend shown in the dotted line. As one of the outputs of the research, I'm hoping to present a database of EV and non-EV policies. This is a snapshot of the database so far. Additional categories on the top will be designed based on the analyses, such as policies like directly related to EVs or indirectly contributing to EVs like road taxes, for example. I'm also hoping to study the patterns of policy reforms against the patterns of market share. There are too many pieces of Norway's EV policy history to fit on a single graph, but they all seem to be consistent with the market share trends, like in 2015, where they introduced exemption from 25% VAT on leasing. Here in the case of Denmark, there's a clear difference in market share. Obviously, we're speaking of much less in terms of numbers, but pattern of policy removal is consistent with drop in market share. For example, BEVs were exempt from registration tax until the end of 2015. As of 2016, BEVs were included in the same tax regime as petrol and diesel-driven cars. So the initial findings from the database work include there's a lot of stress on car and road taxes. For certain countries, under the current tax system, proceeds from car and road taxes are set to drop. Changes in policy account for changes in market share to a large extent, as we've seen in the 2 graphs. During the rest of the year, I'm going to focus more on institutional reforms, whether they precede policy changes in certain cases. So thank you so much for joining us, and I hope to collaborate with many of you. Please feel free to connect with me by email. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'd like also to thank everyone. Wasn't that fantastic? Usually also we would also everyone give now is like a big applause. So I think we just also do that virtually now, but really well done to all also of the scholars. Had been really great session. So good afternoon from Berlin. And for those of you who joined Transforming Transportation before, we will now move after this session also to the reception. We would network, we would drink, and particularly for our scholars, it would be so important also to connect. So please also raise some questions in the chat, but also make also an appointment with them afterwards. I think they are great scholars and it's always a good networking opportunity. My name is Holger Dartman. I started the scholarship together with Ramon on behalf of the Schipper family 9 years ago. My God, we're getting old. So, and with many friends and colleagues. And lots of them I saw also in the chat. So sorry also can't see you also today, but I hope also we will see each other soon. We usually also have the handover of the certificate. And here, so let's do some magic now. So when I count down from 3, we will hand over also the certificates. So 3, 2, 1. And I hope you can see that all. And we will do now a quick screenshot. So let's freeze for a moment also for a smile. Wonderful, great, thank you so much. But please also don't leave yet, because then also there comes also the second part. Let me also announce the Lee Schipper Scholarship 2021. If you are a young researcher under 35 in the field of transport and energy, have an inspiring, transformative research idea, you need to receive up to $10,000, access to international known experts and a mentorship program, and also the opportunity also to speak at TT 2022. Then also please also have a look now also either at the slide or also Ramon also will share in a second also the link also to the scholarship. And please also spread the word. It's such a great opportunity, and it's would be also nice also to have many applications. Thanks also to the Volvo Research and Educational Foundation. We not just have 2 global scholarships, but also one particular also for Africa. And you saw also the amazing presentation and work also by Abisai. And finally, also let me thank the organizers, World Bank and TT. And I saw also that Ani is joining. Thanks, Ani. I also saw Jose Luis was great also that you joined, and so on. Our donors, as well as all our board members and the individual supporters listed all also there on the slides. I know our time is up. Unfortunately, we can't go all together for a drink, but I hope also we can do that soon. And with that, I also wish you all also safe and healthy 2022. Thank you very much and see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.